The sinking of the Titanic, 1912. The year was 1912. The most magnificent ship of its time, RMS Titanic, was the pride of England. Built at the Harland and Wolff shipyard in Belfast, Ireland, construction began in 1909, and after 3 years of work, the grand vessel was finally completed. Titanic belonged to the White Star Line Company and was introduced as the largest and most luxurious passenger ship ever built. It was 269 meters long, 53 meters high, and weighed over 46,000 tons. Its construction cost $7.5 million, a fortune by today's standards. Every corner of the ship was like a floating palace. The first-class passengers enjoyed grand salons, dining rooms, a gym, a Turkish bath, a swimming pool, reading rooms, and even a barbershop. The second class was so comfortable that it could easily rival first class on other ships. Altogether, the Titanic would carry 2,240 people, from millionaires and celebrities to poor immigrants seeking a better life in America. One of the ship's most stunning features was its grand staircase. The glass-domed ceiling let in natural light, making passengers feel as if they were walking through the lobby of a luxury hotel. But there was a darker side too. Titanic carried only 20 lifeboats, even though it could have carried 64. That was still within the legal requirements of the time, and since the ship was believed to be unsinkable, no one worried much. Its 16 watertight compartments were said to keep it afloat, even if 4 of them flooded. White Star Line thought too many lifeboats would make the decks look crowded, and so they didn't add more. The voyage begins. On the morning of April 10th, 1912, a huge crowd gathered at the port of Southampton. People came to see Titanic's maiden voyage. At noon, under the command of Captain Edward Smith, the great ship set sail. After short stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, Titanic turned west toward New York. Everything was going perfectly until the night of April 14th. That day, other ships nearby sent warnings about icebergs. Captain Smith adjusted the route slightly but didn't slow down. As night fell, the temperature dropped below freezing. The sea was calm, there was no moonlight, and visibility was poor. At 11:40 p.m., Lookout Frederick Fleet spotted a massive iceberg emerging from the darkness. He rang the warning bell and shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead!" But it was too late. The Titanic struck the iceberg on its starboard right side. The impact didn't seem too bad, but most passengers barely felt it. But below the surface, the hull was torn open, and water began pouring in fast. Disaster unfolds. When Captain Smith and ship designer Thomas Andrews inspected the damage, they immediately realized the truth. Titanic was going to sink. They sent out distress calls, hoping for nearby ships to respond. Only a few were close enough, and one of them was the Carpathia, about 58 miles away. It turned and headed full speed toward Titanic, but it would take hours to arrive. Around 12:25 a.m., lifeboats began to be loaded. "Women and children first," was the order, but confusion reigned. Many passengers didn't understand what was happening. One of the first lifeboats, meant to carry 65 people, left with only 28 aboard. As panic spread, the lower decks began flooding rapidly. The bow front of the ship slowly dipped below the water. By 2:05 a.m., the last lifeboat was gone. Around 1,500 people were still on board. The stern back of the ship rose high into the air before breaking in two with a terrible noise. Some passengers jumped into the freezing water. Others stayed behind. Captain Smith, according to witnesses, remained with his ship, an old maritime tradition of taking responsibility for everyone on board. The end. By around 2:20 a.m., Titanic had completely disappeared beneath the surface. In the icy waters of the North Atlantic, most people died within minutes from hypothermia rather than drowning. Only 705 people survived. When the Carpathia finally reached the site around 4 a.m., it rescued the survivors from the lifeboats, many of them frozen and in shock. The story of the Titanic is not just about a ship. It's about human pride and our belief that we can defy nature. A vessel once called Unsinkable, but against the silent strength of an iceberg, fate had other plans.